Hello, everybody. Welcome to our new live chat. Today, I will talk with my friend Jurai Zamborsky, head of sales at Contentino. So we continue after a short pause. Unfortunately, we all had vacations. So right now we are back and we'll continue to share with you everything we know. And like I mentioned in the preview of this episode, so we regularly are talking about B2B marketing, but many of our B2B marketers and founders, community members, also facing issues with sales, and that's why it's great to talk with a person who in the field or who is in charge of sales. And as Jurai joined Contentino when they were like a small startup with small monthly recurring revenue, he had an opportunity to grow that company. And today we'll speak about all the lead generation process, all tools he uses, how actually he persuades his leads to come to the demo, how he closes the demos, and so on. Thanks a lot, man, for joining me today.
Hey, Andre, thanks a lot. Great to see you, and thanks for having me.
Well, besides my short introduction, I always ask my guests to introduce themselves, as you know, they can do it much better than me. So let's start with the first very, very easy question: who you are and what you do.
Thanks a lot, Andre. So my name is Jurai Zamborsky. I'm running or leading sales and business development at Contentino. We're helping marketing agencies and their clients to seamlessly collaborate while creating social media content. So basically, it's a very simple calendar where you, as an agency, or if you're working in a marketing team, can easily create content, collaborate with your colleagues, and get content approved by client, and then eventually share it on particular social media network. So basically, I joined Contentino back in 2016 when we were just starting, launched on the market, and we were a very small company, and we were only 3 guys. So that was pretty cool and interesting stuff for me to do the sales, because I had never done any sales, or I haven't had any sales experience beforehand. So for me, it was like new learnings every single day, and I basically learned by doing. I never had any mentor from the start on the sales. So yeah, and eventually we made it up to grow pretty exponentially. We tend to call it's a pretty nice hockey stick now. And what is also really funny is that we're basically a spin-off of a marketing agency. So we don't have any external money, so it's completely bootstrapped. And I'm glad that a portion of the money that we got from the clients, or we acquired from the clients, was thanks to the sales process, which I managed to build over time.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for that introduction. And actually, when I speak with sales teams, they tell me that they face regularly 2 problems. First is get leads to the product demo, and the second one is talk to the qualified leads. And in most common cases, marketers generate leads and drive them to the sales team without any qualification, without lead nurturing, without profiling and enrichment these leads. So sales folks need to arrange some kind of qualification discovery calls. I assume you also faced this situation several times. And often the sales team realize that they are talking to low quality leads, and that this conversation is just complete waste of time. So let's cover this topic. First of all, how your lead generation process looks like, and how you can be sure you generated quality lead.
Yep. So basically, there are 2 sides of generating the leads. Obviously, there is the inbound side that we're doing, and we've been doing this for a pretty long time because it's working very well. So I can cover this one very, very quickly, and if you have some questions, like, we can go more deeply into this one. So basically, talking about the inbound sales, which we have right now, inbound sales process, We have activities that are generating the leads to our website, obviously getting them into the Contentino trial period, which is for 30 days. And basically, right after they make a decision to sign up for Contentino, to create an account, we're calling these guys until the 3rd day of their registration. We were basically doing a lot of testing, like when is the right time to call them. Beforehand, we haven't done any calling to our customers. And then we end up having those issues that you just mentioned, that we got people on the demo and we realized that it's not...
Something happened to our service, unfortunately. Jurai was frozen. So just give us a second, I will reload the room.
I can hear you.
And we can continue right now.
Yes,
so we are still live.
So what was the last thing that you got from me?
And you just shared about inbound process.
Yeah. So I was just saying that before actually starting or having any process, we ended up having those issues that you just mentioned. So basically, having not qualified leads, having the demos with us, and during the first couple of minutes when I was speaking with them, I just basically realized that, okay, well, this is not the right fit. So when we hired a new person to join me for the sales team, and now we're more people in the sales department, let's say, we started doing these discovery calls. We were doing a lot of, or running several tests over weeks, like when is the best time to actually call the people, whether it's immediately right after the person creates an account, whether it's within the Thursday, whether it's up to 3rd day, or whether it's within the first 7-week period. We actually realized that from the 1st day to the 3rd day, that's basically the best time to call our clients, as they're still having the emotions regarding, or emotional connection to our product, and also they may know like what we're talking about. So I would say, like, it always starts with this first call, and obviously also during the registration process, there are certain questions when you actually register to Contentino to fill in. So how many people are in your company, or how many people you think will be using Contentino, and also what's your background. So we can actually make a better qualification of the person which we are speaking to. Just to tell you more about the discovery call, how it works. I actually did a lot of mystery calling to other companies, and I was trying to figure out like what is their process. And I think there is always a case where you see these sales reps, or let's call them customer success managers or representatives, who are doing these discovery calls. And I actually realized that many cases they're just having the script which they're going through. They're asking their own questions. They don't really pay attention what you're saying to them, and they actually go according to the agenda.
Some kind of human robots.
Yeah, exactly. I never wanted my colleagues, or neither myself, and I think we'll be even speaking about that regarding the product demos itself. I never wanted myself to sound like a robot during the conversation with the person on the phone. So it always starts with a question like, "Hey, I just see that you just signed up for Contentino, and what is your first impression of the tool?" So simply asking this opening question, getting them to speak and tell them about the experience. And what is actually really interesting in many cases, I don't even have to ask about their feedback. I don't even have to ask about their issues. They're just telling their story themselves, and I'm just taking notes, which is really great. Obviously, in many cases, you have to ask the person if the person that actually created an account is the one who's a decision maker in the company. And I would say that as you're actually trying to have a very open conversation from the beginning, making sure that you're not missing the opportunity and not kind of wasting time of both parties, you can ask the person straight away, like, so as you created the account, does it mean that you're the one who actually decides whether your company will take the product or not? and they're just telling me, yeah, I'm the one, or I'm the one who's just like testing the product, and I will make a suggestion for my boss. So, and from then, it's always a question, and it depends case by case, whether I'm speaking with the right person or it's just the user of the product. So yeah, and once we have this discovery call, we will figure if Contentino may be the right fit, and based on this, we're making the immediate decision whether we want to suggest having a product demo as a follow-up, or we would just simply close the call with saying like, okay, that's really great. We're happy that we have you on board, and simply just say that we're gonna send you some materials you can use to easily onboard and get better experience with the product. It's not saying that I don't care about you, but just like making the decision in the moment and actually prioritize like who you want to focus on as in the follow-up for the product demos. So yeah, that's the discovery part, which we've been doing this actually for the last year, and I can tell that we literally increased the quality of the leads that actually go to the product demo stage. Well, sometimes I would say that they might be some misunderstandings during the discovery call. Sometimes I end up having people that are not really the right fit, which I will discover during the 5 minutes of the demo call. So yeah, it's not 100% working, but I would say just to close the first part of the discovery, or actually making sure that I have the right person speaking with, just having the honest conversation from the beginning.
Awesome. And you just shared the process. You know, I remembered several conversations with sales folks. Like it was like I was asking some questions, and not literally, but their answers were, well, it's not something that is in our script, so slow down, man. I need to ask you several questions before you'll ever be able to ask anything. So,
yeah.
That's great. That's great about how you just structured your discovery call. Completely agree on segmentation, on further actions with your leads, depending on whether they fit your ideal customer profile or no. And actually, I see a comment from Rico. He asks us, how did you know simplify your social media approval workflow was the right tagline for the landing page? Any processes you used?
That's actually a really great question. And I should say right now, I don't have it in my script. No, I'm kidding.
Didn't prepare.
Well, when I joined the company, we basically had this tagline from the beginning, because we started 3 years ago as an internal tool in the marketing agency. So basically resolving our own issues. Yeah, I see the question now. Well, I think that what it stands for, it really represents the target audience that we're trying to approach, which is the marketing agencies and also the marketing teams whenever they have some approval workflows in place. So I think that when the guys who were actually creating this tagline, because I was not present in the company at the time, were really thinking of like, who's the ideal customer profile or the target audience that we want to approach with this, and also what are the jobs to be done that those potential clients are hiring Contentino for. We basically 2 months ago, we were having this like a whole day meeting where we were just building the new vision for the company. And what is actually really interesting is that we figured that basically it's still the same. Like we're simplifying the social media approval workflow, collaboration workflow, and it didn't change from the beginning that much. So yeah, I wouldn't say that there was any special process away from some brainstorming and also creating some mind maps where we basically put down like who's the target audience and what are the jobs to be done that we're trying to solve.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for sharing. And you guys who are listening to us right now, you are also welcome to ask any questions about sales, about Contentino marketing about Jurai scripts. Anything you want to
Don't have
figure
any
out?
scripts.
I'm just kidding. So anything you'd like to ask us, just feel free to answer. Just comment with your question, and we'll be glad to answer this. So, what are your core lead generation channels and tools? What let's first of all let's cover what channels do you use for lead generation, as you're also a B2B company, and what are your, or let's say, what is your marketing stack? What tools do you use for lead generation?
So for the outbound, or I call it cold outreach in my case, I'm mostly focusing now on LinkedIn. So I'm using LinkedIn for lead generation, but it's not only the LinkedIn, but also a combination of, let's call them for the first moment cold emails, as well as cold calls. However, I would call them differently as more or less like more than warm calls. So just to explain you this, what is the process I'm currently doing on the outbound side, and I think that then we can cover the inbound side as well, because I think right now the outbound is what I'm focusing on for my own experience. So basically, what I'm doing in the process, going over LinkedIn in Sales Navigator, searching for, well, firstly, what I do, I'm not selecting the prospects profiles, but actually accounts profiles. So I start with that one. The reason for that is when you normally put down in LinkedIn, like you're looking for marketing managers, CEOs, and stuff like that, you end up having people who are just simply having this in their descriptions or as their titles, but sometimes like the companies are not actually from the industry you're looking for. So therefore, I start firstly with the account search, and I put the marketing agency as a keyword that I'm looking for, and also specify based on the obviously the ideal customer profile, well, template that you actually created. I'm using that one and found it very, very helpful to go over the other aspects of, or other prospecting criteria which I'm covering. So once I have let's say agencies that are based in well, Ricardo, he's from Belgium, so let's say agencies based in Belgium, and I specify that these marketing agencies should be from the marketing and communication advertising industry, might be also like information technologies. Once I have these, there is actually an option for you to search for employees in such companies that you got in the filter. I actually created one guide related to this, but that was more about like how to find companies using certain technology via Sales Navigator. But this is pretty similar. So you just simply search for the employees working in these companies. And then when I have these prospects, prospect list, I'm always specifying them based on their titles and specific locations. So what I do afterwards, I'm reaching out to these
just once you have this list, what's happening?
Yeah, so once I have the list, I normally run the automation, which I guess most of the listeners will be familiar with. So basically using DuckSoup. Beforehand, I was testing different tools like Meet Leonard and also something which is called Orca. But I ended up still having the DuckSoup as it provides you, let's say, the best features and things for automations, also tagging the people which you're trying to approach. So I automate the profile viewing on these profiles in one day. Well, either the same day or the day afterwards. I do the same automation on the same list, but now actually with sending personalized requests or requests with a personalized message. My strategy for this one, and I really advise the listeners or people who are watching us now to test it out, because I got really great results on the response rate. So basically what I'm doing is that I'm reaching out with this, I call this research question. And this research question is about that I'm asking basically the prospect about, or the message is following that, hey, I'm doing currently research on how marketing agencies based in, and then I specify or sort of like personalize based on location, based on, let's say, based in Brussels, plan social media for the clients. And then I say, like, I give them little help. So I say, like, in most cases, or from the research, in most cases, I hear that they are doing this with Google Docs and Excel. And I also give them a choice of those tools, which are most of the marketers are familiar with, like Buffer and Hootsuite. And then I simply ask, like, so what's your case? Is it the same or different? Or is it the same? And that's it. Thank you so much for your help. I'm basically getting up to 30% of response rate, which is pretty good, because I was kind of like searching through what are good benchmarks of this. And I think like Stapo from the marketing family had a webinar one time ago with a guy who's actually like great expert in the cold outreach, and he was mentioning that the pretty good benchmark on this, it's like 15% of the acceptance rate. So mine with this approach is actually up to 30%. Sometimes depends on the country or the location. Now I can tell you like which countries are the best in the responding, which countries are the worst. So yeah, and once I have this, and I got people responding to my messages, what I simply do, I spend the first half of my day actually going over their responses. If they don't respond, I simply write a quick follow-up message, and they immediately respond to me, or sometimes within a day. And then what I try to do, and now going back to the cold calling thing, I simply
just give me a second. I will ask a question. So do you also automate this follow-up message, or you write it manually?
Well, I'm writing, it's sort of like semi-automated. So with DuckSoup, there is no way for you to actually add the automated follow-up message. In the Meet Leonard, it is possible, but I'm not using Meet Leonard anymore because there were some issues with LinkedIn. So a lot of profiles got canceled or got banned because they were misusing their features. So basically what I do, I'm simply opening up every single profile which appears in my LinkedIn inbox. So I open up the profile in the new tab. I check quickly like what is the person and what was their response. If they don't respond, I already have some templates for response, which I'm using. So simply copy paste, putting it there, and then what I do, if I'm waiting for their response, I simply snooze the tab for the next day. So because the problem with LinkedIn messages is that there is no CRM system inbuilt, or any way for you to snooze conversations. You can only archive them. So I figured my process this way, that simply opening up the profile in the new tab and then snoozing it for the next day. If the person actually responds, what I do, I'm using this Chrome extension which is called UPROC, so UPROC, which actually shows the company information right next to the LinkedIn profile, including the phone number to the company. Sometimes it doesn't, so I have to open up the website of the company, and I'm calling straight away to the person. And then in most cases, I ended up having the gatekeeper on the phone, which is like another issue that salesperson or salespeople are actually experienced of, and they have bad results thanks to the gatekeepers. So for me, basically, in comparison with pure cold calling, I can tell right away that, hey, this is George, and I'd like to speak with I don't know, Andre from the marketing team. And in 90% of the cases, I have no follow-up question of why I'm calling. So, and this is working really well, because once you get the person on the phone, they immediately know who you are, because you don't have to recall your name. You say like, hey, this is George, and I was reaching out on LinkedIn. and they're like, hey, yeah, I remember you because, you know, they saw my message, they saw my profile. And then basically I ask follow-up questions just to figure out like what is the process, how they work, whether they have any issues during the process. So I mean, I sort of like qualify the person more on the phone call because they are confirming like, hey, we're using these tools, the process is not working really well. So I'm just asking more questions to understand the prospect more. And then when I think that it's a great time to close the call with the product demo suggestion, I'm always doing this. And I'm not sure if you want me to ask this straight away, like how I'm doing this and what are some tips that I figured are working well. But
yeah, but before this, I'd like to know another question that you mentioned. So what are the countries with the best response rate? So we all will start targeting them.
Well, yeah, so I would say obviously Asian market, that's working really well. I'm not sure whether people are really happy to respond to like strangers. I just really remember when I was volunteering back in Cambodia 1 year ago, and I simply got in the country, and I was helping a bunch of startup guys running their businesses, and the day afterwards they were just all of them were just like sending requests to me. So I don't know if this is like the cultural stuff which is happening in the Asian market, but Asian markets definitely. I was also testing some European countries. I would say like the southern countries, they work very well for me. UK market was worse. The same thing with the US, obviously. And my hypothesis on this one is just simply they're getting so many messages every single day that they're, you know, like they're making decision whether they would like to respond on the message or not. So they're like bombed with the extra amount of outreach from strangers. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And how do you, let's say, when you automate your outreach, how do you manage this issue, what actually Ricardo did with his profile by putting the stars near his name? So when somebody tries to, let's say, personalize the message,
Yep.
Rico sees that it was automated message. How do you handle this issue?
Yeah, to be honest with you, as I'm targeting like guys that are working in agencies, and I guess they're just like overall overloaded with their work, and in many cases they're just using Excel and Google Docs, which is sort of like old-fashioned way of working. I think that they never thought of there's somebody, or not never thought of, but I never ended up having somebody actually having something different in the profile name. But sometimes, like long time ago, when I was firstly starting with this, I realized that in many cases people were having like different titles. Like even in the title or the job they're doing, they put like a very long, like not the company name, but actually like I'm helping other companies to do better with the copier and something like that. And my first tryouts with this approach were a total disaster because I realized like I cannot put the title inside of the message just to make it more personal, because I ended up having those issues. But yeah, but I mean, right now I haven't got any issues regarding like somebody would ask me like, are you actually automating this process or something?
Okay, awesome. And actually, how do you understand it's the right time to suggest lead to schedule a product demo, and how do you persuade them to come to your demo call? Because it's just another big issue for sales team if the lead isn't sales ready and you call him something and you'll call him a bit earlier, so before he is sales ready. so you just can miss the opportunity. So
Yep.
how do you manage this?
Yep. In most cases, I realized that that it's actually probably the most crucial part of the call which I'm doing is actually the call to action. So suggesting the demo or some sort of a follow-up. Many cases when I'm asking questions, like additional questions about the process, I always ask like, so do you see any issues or any, like space for the improvement in such process? And people are very, like confident and very satisfied with the way it works. So what I do, I never tell them like, well, your approach is wrong or something. Let's have a demo. I'm going to show you like what is the best thing for you. I always confirm like the way you work. It's pretty standard way of working. I totally get your point. And also, as I've been doing this research or approaching other companies, agencies, it's pretty standard way of working. So I'm kind of like not telling them that they're doing the wrong stuff, because people, they don't like whenever somebody is telling them bad feedback or something. So I'm kind of like making them feel comfortable. But then afterwards, what I do is I say, but I would like to suggest that I would like to challenge your approach. And then I say normally the number, and this is like really based on the feedback from our clients. Like in most cases, whenever people work in such way and they have such old-fashioned process, they're losing like 30% of their time just spending on the operational tasks. So I'm challenging this by telling them that, well, your way of working is pretty standard, but you may not realize this, that you're losing 30% of your time based on my experience with such agencies like yours. So would you be interested in seeing how this may be better? So can you actually imagine how this can be better? So you're kind of like putting the prospect in more ideal state. And in most cases, I hear the answer that I would like to explore like what you're sort of offering me or what you have on table. But then going back to your question about like if I realize that it's not the right timing, I'm totally fine with it. I'm not trying to rush anything. I'm making sure that, well, firstly, they hear at least about me, and also I know that you share this statistics a lot about that within the first 3 months, 70% of your or 68% of your prospects are not ready to buy. So I'm not trying to be very pushy on those. I think that everybody hates such salesperson trying to sell to death. So yeah, my approach is that it's absolutely no problem. I'm gonna send you more information for you so you can check that out. You can share that with your team, and I'm gonna get back to you later on. So what will happen afterwards, if I immediately realize that it's not the right timing, as they're like going through a certain changes or a certain process, right after the call, well, firstly, sending a follow-up email, obviously, and then in the same time scheduling the follow-up email, which will appear in their mailbox in like 3 to 4 weeks, so that I'm checking back if anything new is on their end. And in many cases, I got this, that at the time when I was calling them, they were not ready to buy. Or right now, since it's summertime, I'm experienced of like decision makers, or actually, yeah, I'm calling them, and I realize that the decision makers are actually on vacation. So we're kind of like postponing this, but they're still interested, and they're actually getting me in touch with their managers and supervisors, so that I can speak with them directly.
And actually, how do you structure exactly the sales call? Do you have any structure for this? How do you plan the call beforehand?
So I think the planning is the most crucial part, like in anything, not only the sales calls, but also the product demos and anything else in general. So So basically, I go through their website trying to find out some touch points that I can actually relate to during the phone call, also looking at the clients that they're already working with, if there are some that we do work with already, but actually in other countries. So trying to figure out like what is the potential, where the call can go through eventually, because I think that sometimes like having the structure is a great thing to have, but in many cases, like if you actually agree on something and then you add a little thing on it, like little excitement, like just to give you an example, there was a client that I was reaching out, and I realized that basically we're working with the same client but in 20 other countries. And I mentioned that at the end of the call, and I told them that, well, there might be another potential of this because you can actually got connected to the global brand with these, and they were even more excited about having the product demo. So I would say the preparation is very crucial. And then talking about the structure of the call, yeah, I don't have any like direct script, but there are certain cases which may occur. In most cases, I have them like really like the great profile. So they're telling me that we're working the old-fashioned way. We have these issues. So for me, it's a bit easier to kind of like switch and make the bridge from listening to actually suggesting them the demo call. If there are some cases when they're already using some tool, again, my approach is that I agree that the way they're working and the tool they're using is pretty good, but I'd like to challenge their approach with my experience. Yeah, and then so opening, yeah, it's about telling them that it's me who was reaching out. I like to ask follow-up questions on what I was reaching out on LinkedIn. Then we have the conversation. Then I make the bridge or switch from the problem to actually suggestion for the solution, which they may discover. And then I always tell them like just to make the right decision, if this is the right fit for you, would you spend 10 to 15 minutes on the shared screen call? I always try to emphasize the fact of shared screen call, because in this point, it's always about them, like what they can actually get from the demo, not about me. That I think that from my perspective, it's best that you will have the demo with me, but I'm always emphasizing that just for them, they can spend 10 to 15 minutes with me, seeing if this can be really the right fit. And based on specifics or based on specifics which they have in their own process, I can show them Contentino in the right way. So yeah, that's the structure. And then obviously the ending of the call is about agreeing on like when is the right time for such call. And based on my experience from the last couple of months, I figured that it's always best just to make that one decision on behalf of your prospect, because basically there is one statistics which say that we're making 30,000 small decisions every single day, including like whether we're scrolling the feed on Facebook. So just in order not to make additional decision on the prospect, I'm suggesting the time availability which I have. And just to make it very simple, let's say that I'm calling the person at, now it's 5 p.m. So I normally say, let's have the call tomorrow at 5 p.m. Is it good time for you? And when they say it's okay, then we're fine. We have a deal for the call, and immediately right after the call, I'm sending invite to their calendar from Calendly. So I'm actually, I'm not sending them link and telling them right after the call, you can actually book the right time with me through the Calendly link, but I'm actually putting their email address and email address and the date and time directly in the Calendly, so they're receiving this in their mailbox with reminders.
And actually, what questions do you use to close the deal at the end of the sales call? Or what is your process to close the deals at the end of the conversation?
That's actually a really, really interesting question. And as we are working, or we're in SaaS business, it's really hard to actually close the deal right during the first call which I'm having. it would be really great. But the process is always about a little bit of testing. So right after the demo call is we just agree on the time or the time frame until when we can discuss the testing and also some specifics, some questions which they may have. We agree on the time, and normally I'm not trying to tell them that now you have 30 days of free trial where you can test Contentino completely for free without any restrictions, because this would actually prolong the whole process. So basically, I'm just telling them, you have some time, but let's agree on the specific date when we're gonna have a follow-up call and where we're gonna discuss like the next steps in the process. And then about the closing, so I think that now we're actually going into the product demos itself, if I'm right. Am I right?
Yep.
So in that one, during the call, I'm actually taking a lot of notes. So basically, when I spend first 5 minutes during the product demo, I ask questions, I take notes about the process, going very deeply into the issues and problems. And I actually build my closing on top of this. So at the end of the product demo, I say, like, based on what we discussed and based on things that you appreciated during the call, X, Y, Z that I normally list, and these were the things that you actually appreciated. Do you think that we can actually proceed it to the next step, which is actually signing the contract? And when is the time that we can agree on we're going to have a follow-up and agree eventually on this one? I did have some cases when I closed the deal right after the call. That was especially with American clients, which was very interesting experience because I think that American clients were mostly making their decisions based on their emotions and feelings. So they basically paid the tool right after the call. But then having clients like Germany, I would say even Netherlands in some cases, then it's a little bit harder. So then it's really about agreeing on a particular date until when we're going to have a follow-up and having the communication or discussion on like how we're going to proceed this relationship further.
And actually, have you ever experienced or faced the issue when Americans or people from the Western Europe asked you, where are you located? And besides, actually, when you answered that you are from Slovakia, they reacted like, well, it's just from the Eastern Europe. We need time to think. And have you ever experienced this?
Yep. Well, I'm normally saying that I'm based in Prague because that's true. Right now, I moved over to Prague, so that's a little trick which I'm using right now. Well, I never had somebody saying straight away like, oh, this is Eastern Europe or something, or reacting differently. I'm always trying to add something very specific on this one, like, like this is the place where we drink a lot of beer and stuff, just to make it a little bit more funny. So it's sort of like American style of communicating or selling, actually, that you're ended up being more friendly than just like cold face and just joking a little bit. So now I'm saying I'm from Prague, which is pretty popular place to visit. And then I always say like, oh well, like if you ever end up being here, like we can have a beer or something.
Awesome. And what are you doing with the leads who tell that they need time to think? How do you close them later?
Mm-hmm. Well, regarding such leads that tell you straight away that they need some time to explore the tool and stuff, I think in this part is always about creating some urgency. So it's really bad whenever you leave, or whenever you left the whole deal on their side, and when you are losing control over the deal. So what I'm trying to do in such cases is always creating such urgency, saying like, well, like very soon we're changing our pricing. Well, this is actually working very well, that we're having this conversation inside, we're changing the pricing. also I'm saying about that I'm going for for vacation. So can we actually get this done earlier or something? So sort of using these little tricks, and I'm sorry and I apologize that I don't have examples, which are those, but just in general creating urgency and letting them know that it's okay that you would like to make decision later, but then if you do so, there are certain circumstances that are happening. So so I would advise other salespeople that are struggling with this just to try to create a certain urgency in such place.
But anyway, what is the process you use to close them later? Do you have, I don't know, maybe you have some additional lead nurturing sequence you put them after that conversations, or maybe you have a private community where you invite them to join and then you collaborate with them there. So any kind of process you can share.
The second thing would be really great. The first one, obviously, there is a nurturing sequence which is still happening, but in the same time, I'm making sure that I keep this very personal. So I'm trying to approach them in the time that we agreed on. So if they told me immediately, and I think that I have already mentioned this, that if this is not the right timing, let's agree on the time when this may be better. And then I try to approach them a bit beforehand. So I think like calling them straight away works the best, because people can, you know, if you just send an email, it's not their priority. That's one thing. Another thing, they have time to make their decision, but actually if you get them on the phone, they can tell you straight away, like, okay, now it's the right time, let's do it. And also I would say that in many cases, I got a feedback from them, like they actually apologized for not getting back to me in the meantime. So I got a little advantage when I was calling them, saying that I never heard back from you, and I wanted to check back like what's going on, and if we can, if this is the right time when we can actually sign the contract.
Awesome. And I see a question from Roman. I will divide this question into different questions. So the first one is, what lead gen tools or maybe strategies that from your point of view will die soon? So cold outreach or LinkedIn outreach or anything else. And then I'll ask you another question.
Yeah, I've heard a lot that the cold calling is dying. In some way also
already.
What is that already?
Yeah.
And also might be also like a cold emailing, but I just wanted to emphasize that the little touch point which you actually put before you reach out to your prospects with the cold call and with the cold email is something very crucial. So I would say, like, as long as you have a certain touch point before approaching somebody with the cold calling, this always may work. And it is working in my case. Like I said, it's not like I'm calling somebody that, hey, I'd like to speak with, who's the person responsible for, you know, like it's John. Okay, so please can you give me John on the phone? I say straight away, please give me John from the marketing team, and I introduce myself. They always know who I am, and that I approach them. So apart from the other lead gen techniques and strategies, it's actually a tough question.
Yep, definitely.
What do you think, Andrei? What do you think?
You know, I have heard different opinions about it. Also, cold calls are dead, cold emailing is dead, or everything is dead. But you know the truth that all relationships are starting, they are all cold. You
Yep.
always start from being in cold position. So that's why even if like we tend to think that inbound marketing is something about generating warm leads. Yep, this is true. But when you are promoting a new piece of content, you are promoting it to a cold audience. Yep. Who never heard about you, who has zero credibility, or you have zero credibility. They never expected to see this content from you. They don't trust you, they don't understand whether you are expert in your field or no. That's why all relations always start cold. And you just nailed it. So it depends how do you use any technique or strategies. So you can use it the smart way, like you shared, or like in the one of the previous live chats with Guillaume from Lemlist. He also shared several strategies he actually uses for cold outreach emailing, and he has, let's say, in his industry, he has one of the best response rates, and that's how he managed this channel. He actually mastered this channel, and that's why that's.
I would like to add on this one, like, and 100% agree. Like, as long as you stay personal and being personal, and I think like this is very obvious to most of the people who are watching us, and also people from the B2B marketers and founders community. As long as you stay personal and you're not trying to, or you don't think that you're personalizing your approach with, you know, like the title and the company name. If you add that little piece which makes this more open for building relationship rather than just making money, showing that you are actually caring rather than you know, like getting commissions out of closing the deal, I think it will always work.
Definitely. And the second question is, what new techniques or strategies or tactics you were thinking about for lead generation?
About the lead generation. Well, obviously, starting a Facebook group or some community around social media, as we're like working in the social media field. In the same time, yeah. So looking into like who's involved in the Facebook groups related to social media, approaching those people. I tested this approach a bit, and I got pretty good results, but didn't have like really time to make it working and scale with this one. So looking into this one. In my case, also using Quora a lot, because I figured that there are so many leads waiting for their responses on Quora. So basically building some sort of expertise on Quora and approaching those people who need some help right there. So those are the new ways that I'm thinking of over the next couple of months. But as the current process, it's kind of working. Well, I would say it could be better if we don't have the summertime, because I ended up having issues with, you know, that people are on their vacations, and now it's not the right timing and stuff. So I would say that right after the summer ends, I'm gonna get even better results with this approach. But obviously, it's always great to test new approaches. New ways, where new sources of where I can find the prospects.
And from your point of view, what is the best thing to run a community around your product?
The best way of running.
No, I mean, what is the best thing or the best benefit for you to run a community around your product, around Contentino?
The fact that you're showing that you're actually expert in the field. Showing the people that you're creating enough value for them, and you can actually, like, from my perspective, having the social media group where you can gather like social media experts. From my perspective, I would share some knowledge and findings from the clients which are using our tool, even some case studies about the industry itself, and also updates which are happening almost every single day in the social media industry, which is totally true.
Yep,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, because I got an idea. It may be also sharing such interviews which you're having with people like Ricardo, with Guillaume, or myself. So those might be actually like CEOs of marketing agencies that are sharing their stories and sharing their experience with their peers.
Awesome. I asked this question deliberately because, building community takes time and efforts and, of course, resources. So you can't appear once time a week,
Yep.
just post there like we have a new blog post, leave everything or just put everything away and read our awesome new blog post. So
Yep.
it wanna gonna work, and that's
Yeah,
what.
I started such community in my side project, which is not actually in B2B space, but in B2C, and yeah, it's very tough. Like every single day, you have to post something which is variable. You have to think through like what people might be interested in, and to start actually engaging with the content you're sharing. And I guess you're the master of that, also, Josh. Like you guys created a amazing community of people, and what I found really interesting is that like once you hit the moment where it's only you who is sharing the content, and you hit the moment when actually people start sharing their content themselves. So I mean, I'm not saying like from that time you don't have to share anything on your own, but it's great that actually other people are more engaged, and the community is kind of like living its own life.
Thanks a lot for kind words, and we need to give some credits to Ricardo because without his help, we'll
Always to
actually,
Ricardo.
yeah, yeah. I simply wasn't able to build such a great community. And another question from Roman: how do you brand yourself? Like you have a LinkedIn page with testimonials, maybe a Medium blog. Where else you can advertise yourself so that you can get a wider client audience? I mean, I think a question is how do you work on your personal branding, and actually what is your process maybe of what is your process of positioning yourself? What channels do you use, and how do you try to build credibility in eyes of your potential customers?
So over the last 12 months, I made a decision to focus more on building my personal brand, especially in the B2B sales, as well as the social media expertise. So I made a decision to actually, let's say, erase my newsfeed on Facebook, because probably Facebook is the best place to start with. So now my personal feed on Facebook is completely empty. I don't see anything in there, no distractions. So what I did, I only picked the Facebook groups where I think that are actually sharing a lot of value. So the members of those Facebook groups are constantly, sharing stuff, and it's not only about the quick hacks, because there are some Facebook groups which are just like that, but like the groups where you have people sharing like how to build the process, and how to change the mindset. So I switched on notifications for these groups, literally for every single post which has been shared over during the day in those groups. And once a day, I go over those notifications and spend some time on actually figuring out whether the person which is sharing something needs some help, and I can add on something or just join the conversation so that I can share my own personal experience. So I would say like the Facebook group is working very well. And also in the same time, obviously LinkedIn is a great opportunity right now. So as I'm getting those 30% of acceptance rate on my requests, I'm getting actually more and more viewers of the stuff which I'm sharing. The problem is that I haven't figured the way, basically like you or Ricardo. This is something I really admire, that you guys are very consistent in sharing stuff. So this is something I'm still kind of like figuring out how to prepare the content and the value. So I would say like the Facebook and the LinkedIn works very well. But obviously, like building your personal brand, if you want to connect it with the business and the industry that you are working at, always think about like where your target audience is spending the most time at. So if you are working, I don't know, in the company which is working with product managers, just figure out some, I don't know, like Reddit discussion groups or something where you can, or if you are, I don't know, like targeting architects or real estate companies, go to skyscraper discussion groups or something. So yeah.
Well, and this is exactly the process you used, and so how we actually got acquainted to each other. So
yeah, that is true.
Yeah, the same way, and we were just in the early beginning of B2B marketers and founders development. We were just working on everything, on content plan, on ideal group member profile, and so on. And you just joined us, so you also. I can say so. You're among the earliest members of our community. So thanks a lot for being with us so long. And actually, another question from Roman. Who are the best IT sales guys in your country that share their experience on social media so our listeners can follow them? I assume I will add, I just will share my thoughts. I will definitely recommend Stella Efti, whom you also follow, and he is really an awesome guy when it comes to sales. Even he is not from Czech Republic or Slovakia. So actually, I assume it won't be a big issue for you, and you still can follow him because he really shares some great value and his experience about sales.
Yeah, that's the bundle motherfucker guy.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, whom you also can recommend?
From Slovakia, Czech Republic, or in general?
I assume in general will be better.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty bad with names, to be honest, but I found this really great source of actually founding great B2B sales guys. So there is a guy who's named Jim Brown, and Jim Brown, he's running this Sales Tuners podcast where he always interviews like the top performing sales guys, specifically in the B2B industry. So I would recommend going there and checking out the Jim Brown podcast and also the guests which he had there. Apart from that, Jim Burrows, I think it's pretty cool guy that I'm following, and yeah, Steli Efti is the top guy with his Startup Chat podcast as well. I'm a huge fan of podcasts, so most inspiration for the top sales guys which you can find are always in the podcasts. And you're running also the podcast, so yeah, I would recommend people to check out your podcast.
Thanks a lot. So I hope it's also on your list and you listen time to time to my podcast. Like this episode will also appear at I assume not earlier than December or January. So it's great for you guys that you were able to listen us, or either way you'll be able to listen us on iTunes or on your favorite platform not earlier than December or January. Thanks a lot for joining me today, mate. I wish you all the best. Finger crossed for your success at Contentino and your sales career. And for guys, just a quick announcement that Jurai is one of the speakers of the conference that will host in Valencia, in Spain, called B2B Marketing. The same name like our community, a B2B Marketers and Founders Conference in Valencia. So if you are interested, just comment conference or reach me out, and I will provide you all the details and give you a special price. Thanks a lot for joining me today. Thanks for this awesome conversation, and wish you all the best, and all the best to our listeners. Take care, guys.
Thank you, Andrei. Cheers, guys.
Bye.